What is up, everybody? Happy Sunday. Welcome to the Sunday Open. I am your host, Nick, with a special guest. It seems they did not want me to be ranting alone into the void on Sunday nights any longer. I have a very, very special guest here, hopefully for the foreseeable future. I have Pharm. What's up, Pharm? Happy Sunday.
How you doing? Yeah, look, Nick, Ninja reached out to me and they said, hey, Pharm, we need your help. We're really trying to reach out to the demographic of women 95 and older with severe macular degeneration. And we really think you're going to work out great for the show. We just need that mug of yours on here. So we'll see what we can do, Ninja. I'm trying.
I mean, I didn't know that was the demographic that I had the power to reach, but I'm thankful that you are here to help me bridge said gap. So
why they needed me, Nick. They said you were doing great with the women 55 and up with your handsome mug, and they needed something a little more grizzled, I suppose.
Yep, and I appreciate everybody in the chat, everyone hanging out. We started tonight 15 minutes later, and this is going to be the new start time for the Sunday Open as well. Literally on the Sunday Globex Open, we're no longer going to be 15 minutes and hanging out and hoping and waiting for the market to actually open. We're just going to come in and see how things shake out here as we get going. So if you've never seen tonight's show, this might be a work in progress with Pharm and I kind of going back and forth a little bit tonight, but what you're going to get is a way to interpret and attack the upcoming, trading week. We're going to go through, at least I am, we'll see what else Pharm wants to cover too, but we're going to go through ES, we're going to go through NQ, we're going to talk about CL and GC, maybe even some YM, since apparently now we've reached a much older demographic. We may need to talk about the YM a little more in depth and be ready to offer some analysis there too. So we'll see how that goes, but we're going to talk about what's on the docket as far as earnings and the big economic releases as far as data in the pre-market and during the RTH session that are going to be those gotchas to be paying attention for. Be on the lookout for the reaction post news as well. So without further ado, let's go to the charts. So, how did everyone handle last week? This was, Pharm and I were talking about it very briefly in the green room, but this has become the balance range at the all-time highs from hell, and one that I'm just very much looking forward to eventually leaving. I just think every time it looks like we're just going to continue to extend this rally, this never-ending march that is the all-time highs post Liberation Day, or a good time to buy day, as it was coined on this show. We've just kind of been continuing to one time frame make a move higher each week kind of balance and then break out higher. But this one doesn't quite feel as, I don't feel as confident in this one, especially after the way July kind of ended and how August really didn't do a whole lot. And then you have another week like last week where we had a pretty wide range, but what did we really do? All we did was basically just test the upper and lower extremes of August's value area. So I'm not exactly convinced. In fact, I guess the NFP data from Friday, the initial reaction was bullish, but obviously when real traders got to the desk during New York, we just kind of flushed. And that was pretty violent. And then basically just kind of consolidated near the lows of the session, which is basically where we're opening at now. So how did we all handle this last week? How did we think Friday went? I don't know about you guys. This is, I don't have a specific edge going into the upcoming trading session. I'm not exactly sure up, down, left to the right, how this may ultimately unfold. We are sitting right around where we opened to start September, and yeah, real traders are back. We're kind of past the summer trade at this point. So like I said, I don't have a great directional bias heading into this week. And even so far to start this session, we're looking at my execution chart on ES, a little bit of some drift to the downside. Week open going to be sitting right around 64.85s, 83. Let's call it 83 3/4. So I love the reaction from Friday. Maybe that means volatility's here. Seasonality may come into play, and we could have a little bit of fun for the rest of September. What do you think, Pharm?
I mean, I sure hope so. And you said it about Friday. Look, anytime you get data, there's an algorithmic reaction and then there's a human reaction. And you obviously saw, as would be expected, the dollar got crushed, yields got crushed on that very cold print. And when that happens, almost all the time, you're going to have equities bid. And that's what happened. Again, the algorithmic response. But like you said, humans came to the desk and said, okay, well, maybe that's too cold. And you're going to have the macro heads out there. I'm pretty sure that's not you. That's definitely not me out there. And, the macro doomers will be saying that recession is imminent, and the macro permabulls are saying that, nothing stops the strain. But I think, it's probably somewhere in between. And really, though, the market, went from pricing in odds of a recession down into April of like 69%, but like actually, and then that just completely collapsed, right? So like maybe we need to reprice a little bit of that risk. So some volatility would be nice. Like you said, the traders, are back from the Hamptons. They're ready to do business. And I completely agree. Like you said, we talked about this before we came on. I mean, this kind of 4-week balance it's not even that clean of a balance. I mean, sometimes you'll get a 4-week, 5-week, 6-week balance, what have you, and you'll just drop like a composite volume profile on, and it's just a big, beautiful D, and you get nice, clean moves across that. That's just not the case here, and it hasn't been. You had July's profile that was kind of a multi-distribution profile. Then we completed August, which was just kind of a mess across there. And then, like you said, I mean, we basically traversed that entire value area, which was a nice traverse, but it's just has not been clean. So there have been good day trades, but I don't like the balance at all.
Yeah, it's been, I mean, you have days like, I don't know who traded Thursday. I got one trade, went red, tried to then fade the slow, never ending grind up that was that terrible move, basically from, I don't know, whatever it was, 64, 80s. And we basically just drifted up into the 90s. And then the kind of the FU punch towards the end of the day and into the overnight. Like we have days like that in this balance that are just drive you nuts. And I talked about the never-ending green streak that I was on for all of August. That came to an end on a day like that Thursday, where you're just kind of forcing price action, or you're forcing trades, not necessarily forcing trades, but forcing a trade in a terrible environment where if you didn't get into the move early, it was just kind of difficult to react. And then you have a day like Friday, which is a lot of fun to trade. So it's kind of been a mixed bag. Last week, I mean, it really was tough to make tough to, I guess, put a lot of stock into, just knowing that it was a shortened week. We had the holiday, and then volume kind of slowly returns, but really how back was it? You have a big print on Friday. And now I think even this week we have another revision, or whatever it's called. The non-farm payrolls like revision for for the annual revision number. So if you remember, there was a previous reading of this when they revised, what wasn't it, like 900,000 or something?
Oh yeah,
something just ridiculous. Where, like, I always say this, just coming from a world where I got laid off, got pushed out of big tech, and I just know if I was ever so blatantly incorrect in some of my data and metrics that rolled up to I guess people smarter than me, I would have been fired on the spot. So it always makes me laugh when you see such outlandish things like that sometimes. But we'll talk about that when we get to the overall economic numbers. But I guess what Pharm and I have kind of alluded to is we are basically trading, like you can see it in the auto plotted little box that's been drawn here from the OFL tools on my charts. But for the most part, we're in like the dead center of this balance. And it's hard to I mean, I'm not personally, I guess, going into this week, like it's hard for me to want to really buy the highs of said balance unless we get a much better like volume build kind of above this 65-10 area. And, this is the last week. I think the following week we're going to be heading into rollover. So volume's going to slowly start getting split towards the very end of this week and into next week. So I would hope if we're going to continue this rally higher that we start to see a little bit of this structure up near these highs of this 4-week balance start to look a lot cleaner. And you would really want to see us start consolidating and building above that 65-10 area. Otherwise, we may be continuing to kind of retest and head to the bottom edge of this balance. So yeah, like I said, I know I said when or someone asked this question, if you don't have a directional bias, what determines your trade? If you've never seen me and the boys kind of trade in the afternoon during trade the close, I mean, much of it is driven very much by order flow and by price action. What are we seeing in real time? I don't have a directional bias, but I have no problem taking scalp shorts near the all-time highs if it makes sense to. Just like, it could be a very violent day like Friday, but doesn't mean I'm not trying to, find a way to get long near the bottom of that move. But I need to see what price action and what the order flow is actually telling me intraday to find those opportunities. But I personally think after the last few weeks, after a 4-week balance that we're still sitting in the dead center of, you can't really have any true directional bias if you're an intraday trader. Like it's very difficult to looking at this 4-week structure and saying, yes, I'm super bullish and we're at the all-time highs. If your time horizon is a day or a week, that's a tough prediction to make. Just like me being, bearish at the same side of this. Like, look, yeah, obviously we can come retest 6400s or spot like that, but outside of a day, 2 days, 3 days, like how far is your time horizon that you can really have said directional bias? So that's how I tend to execute and kind of live in this type of environment. But we'll see. Let's go to Pharm. You want to show you some of your charts, any levels you're looking at as far as ES?
Sure. Yeah, we can do that. Pop up my chart. You mentioned 6510s. I mean, I'm going with 6496 to 6502 is sort of like a bare minimum, right?
Mm-hmm.
The highest value area high for this range in terms of like a weekly value area high is basically that 6502 half. And that was the initial all-time high we had up here. And basically, I mean, every single push higher has been an epic fail. Like you've said, there's just been no value built up higher there for me. And so it's one of those situations where it's like, you trade up there and you're asking yourself, well, is this finally the breakout, right? So you don't really want to short it, but at the same time, it is objectively a sell, given this balance and the fact that we have not built any value up there. And so what I would like to see is if we're going to go to the upside, if we're going to break to the upside. I mean, first of all, we have some structure from Friday to repair. So that's kind of first order of business, and then see what happens after that. But to me, I would like to see firm bids above, 6502 half, basically, and lifting to new highs, because it really has not been defended from above. And in order to build volume, anywhere remotely close to 6510 or 6503 or like whatever the level is, you kind of have to be able to find bids above 6500, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're just squeezing through that spot and then squeezing, liquidating right back through, that's not going to cut it. And so, asking, what trades we're looking for, I'm looking for the failures with this balance, and really in any balance, that's what I'm looking for. So if we come down into, again, whatever balance, if we come down into the bottom of balance, and the sellers shit themselves, failing to break to the downside. Family show, maybe Sunday. It's Sunday night. I mean, I guess so. Then I'm slapping it long, right? Like, I mean, you're going to want to be short on the way down because longs are liquidating as you trade towards the bottom of the balance, but you have to have your eyes open to be ready to flip. So once sellers fail, then you flip with them. And Friday, we saw that buyers failed, right? They tried to go for this upside break, new all-time highs, and they traded I don't know, on ES, like maybe a tick or two above the pre-market high. On NQ,
Mm-hmm.
there was zero trade above the 5-minute opening range high, a couple of wicks above the open, and then just night time, right?
Yep.
So fading the failures in balance. I mean, that's how I trade balance personally. So I'm have my eyes open for longs at the bottom, eyes open for shorts at the top. But I'm not fading it until it tells me it's ready to be faded. So I want to see those failures and then punish the side that got off sides.
Yeah, and it was funny too on Friday. Like I got short on that once we kind of failed that retest of the overnight high, kind of like in the opening range spot. But I was so just gun shy to want to hold it for a violent move down that as soon as we started approaching that 6520s, that little bit of kind of consolidation there from the overnight in the pre-market, I'm like, I'm exiting here. Because how many times, I mean, you just eventually get run on some of those moves off the open. So I was cautiously bearish in the early parts of Friday. It's so hard when we've done this for week after week after week. We just continue to kind of, get that dip buy, and it just rotates to the other side of value. So yeah,
they have not made it easy
No.
at all to hold on to some of these trades. I mean, Friday, the point at which there was literally just no green candles allowed on the 5, switch over to the 5. It's like, okay, well, go ahead and hold some, right? I mean, like, where's it going? There was no reason to buy once that kind of played out. But I mean, like, you're still just ready to get your face ripped off at any of these spots. But every single time we failed above six, just call it 6,500. We basically get sucked back to 64.50. It was, I mean, the range was 64.60 to 6,500. I cannot stand that range. I will not trade it. I feel like it's been a little bit stretched to 50s, maybe 60, 64.50. But I mean, you see each push just gets sucked right back. So when you see those failed pushes higher, failed breakouts, it just wants to come right back down, which is like exactly the middle, like you said. So depending on how you draw your balance, your technical balance, extremes of it, I've got as what was it, 63, 62 and 3/4 up to this recent high in the midpoint, 64.52 or whatever. So I mean, we're pretty much in the middle, and this range here has just been trash for me. Basically, again, 64.60 to 6,500. For the most part, cleanly rotational, but it has not been easy. And then we have not seen really either side control. I mean, there's a bit of an LVN if you just do kind of a composite profile on this range, or look at your monthlies, however you like to look at it. But I mean, kind of like 64.30 to 64.50 is a bit of a low volume area, and like neither side has shown a willingness to control that. I mean, we just lose the 50s and we just liquidate through, and then we reclaim the 30s and liquidate shorts right back through. So there's just been a lot of indecision here on the part of both buyers and sellers at the extremes. And it's just not a whole lot of fun diddling around in the middle. My wife will tell you I'm the absolutely worst diddler, so I just don't diddle around in the middle.
I mean, we still are trying to figure out if Sunday night is family programming or if we're just having fun here. Especially now, and a happy first football Sunday to everyone that celebrates. The NFL is back, and I appreciate everybody, all 250 plus people that are hanging out with us instead of watching these afternoon games. You're doing possibly a great decision or a very poor decision, I would say, but we appreciate it, everyone. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, hit the thumbs up button. Help more people find this stream, find the show, and hang out with us instead of watching NFL today. So, Pharm, NQ.
Yeah.
Why do you feel NQ is sandbagging the all-time highs as opposed to ES continuing to just be kind of meandering up there? It seems like we continue to fail around the 800s on NQ, which is a spot. If you haven't been watching this show, it's an area we had been talking about as kind of that gate to go make a new all-time high. And if we couldn't get, just like we were talking about with the 65s, the 6510s on ES, it's kind of that area that you really would hope to see if you're super bullish NQ or the NASDAQ or Mag 7 or tech, whatever. Like, you really want to find new buyers initiating above 23,800s. And it doesn't seem like we have a ton of interest. And I know we had the stupid overnight move, whatever was causing it. You had the antitrust things with Google last week, and just kind of that slow meander grind up Thursday and into the overnight Friday that eventually just got absolutely walloped in the face. But for the most part, NQ is also just sitting in balance over the wider range.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I mean, we got to keep in mind, it does have a very good high. I mean, at least relative to highs we've seen put in the last year or two. It seems like every high, for the last couple of years has been some ETH poor high nonsense. And the NQ high is pretty solid. And I mean, we tend to forget over time. I mean, this has been many, many weeks since that high was made. And every time we pop up here, we get some pretty decent selling. Sell program came on what was it, Monday night into the holiday, after the holiday session, right? And just nuked this thing to hell into Tuesday. I mean, that wasn't the first time we've seen that sell program come on from upwards of those, of those highs. Look, every balance you have, there is distribution. I mean, there are sellers. I mean, maybe it's great grandma taking profits from the 1932 lows. Like, we don't know, right? But I mean, there are sellers. There is distribution. And the question is if there are enough, fresh buyers willing to absorb that selling, whether it's at the lows, the midpoint, the highs, whatever, and then ultimately initiate an upside break. So far, I mean, we have seen plenty of buyers willing to, take on that volume, at least at the lows of balance, but they have not been willing to initiate through the highs. And I agree. I've got 869 to 885 as kind of like the final boss, which basically sort of gets you up into the meat of that highest, most distribution that NQ has traded. But yeah, these kind of 804s, 820 range, 869, 885 has been really, really tough. I will say, though, that the thing about NQ that was interesting is that this pesky ass spot, this 23 to 46 is a spot that I've been using for, I don't know, 2 months probably, it seems like, and we've come down there now 3 times.
I know.
And at least this last time, I mean, like, it's not a very good low, right? I think you'd probably agree. It's not that great.
Nope.
But it, at least to me, like, I kind of gave it a little upgrade because it took those prior 2 lows. If you just look left, it just barely kind of ran these stops. And then we had that ETH low that was put in there after AMD earnings a few weeks back. It took those stops, and it did seem to gain at least a little bit of strength or relative strength, given the fact, I mean, obviously it was an outside week. We know that. So no real surprise that, value for the week, was outside of the prior week, but that's actually not the case on ES, nor YM or RTY. But it also kind of overlapped value higher relative to some of these trailing weeks back here, where it tagged these spots. So it just a little bit, to me, gained a little bit of subtle strength. And I think the market needs that. If ES is going to make any kind of a meaningful high, it's going to need NQ to play ball. Maybe we get that. You've got some issue with Broadcom and OpenAI. Like, I'm way too stupid to understand what any of these things are. The only chips I know are the potato chips that I, crumble up all over my shirt while I'm sitting on the couch. But so I don't really know a whole lot. But my understanding is that, there potentially could be some adverse impacts to NVIDIA, but at the same time, some positive impacts to some other companies. And so let's see how that rotation plays in and whether that overall leads to some additional strength in NQ. Or if it, additional weakness, because I mean, obviously NVIDIA has a huge weighting, but if enough companies potentially benefit from some of the cost reductions associated with ASICs versus GPUs, pretending like I know what the hell I'm talking about, then, maybe we go higher. But NQ is just going to have to play ball. And last week wasn't as bad as it could have been, but we still liquidated off these highs.
Yeah, I mean, it looked outside the early part of the week, which, I mean, yeah, this was just, everything looked great until we hit the opening bell on Friday, and real traders, I guess, priced in NFP, and then it just made me kind of shake my head, being like, I have no idea which direction we go.
Yeah.
But if we want to jump to my charts for a hot second, I mean, it looks, I think, Pharm, you're kind of right, where you have all of these attempts back up here in like these, whatever you want to call it, 740s up to like the 850s. Basically, it's just, yeah, it's really
somebody's
tough.
got a few to sell.
Yeah,
somebody's got a few to sell up there.
There's somebody with some weight up there, and I mean they were present last week too. That same general area, last week's value area high. You've got the excuse me, not last week's, August value area high sitting up here, kind of in that 800s to 830 spot. So clearly there are some longer time frame players up there happy to sell into the strength that we've been seeing in the Mag 7 and tech. So I don't know. As we've kind of said the last few weeks, especially, like, I'm still kind of looking for these lows down here towards 2300. I mean, if we knock again, I don't know if I want to be the first person to try to step in and knife catch that. It then becomes, do we go back to that 2-day liquidation towards the first day of August, and we kind of retest the 22,800, so roughly 1,000 points lower? If we were to lose this balance, do we come back down and really test the lows of it, that July low? I don't know, but I guess we'll see kind of how we unfold in the early parts of this week. As I said, Not a specific edge either way, guys. This is going to be a week that I'm happily sitting on my hands until real traders that are hopefully back into this market give me an idea of how they're looking at this going forward. Because something in the back of my head, in the back of my mind, always is like we're in a very weird like outlier scenario. I mean, I don't really have a time horizon longer than a day or two, but it's hard sometimes to look at a whatever we want to call it 30-40% move straight up since the April lows and not wonder when that casual like 5% correction eventually comes into play. And we just kind of get that better spot to actually buy the dip, but it's hard to be playing for that. I just don't want to be on the wrong side of it when it does finally come. So outlier type of rally just continues for the time being. So anyway,
yeah, I mean, I'm really with you, Nick. Like, I mean, I know it sounds like neither of us have a whole lot of conviction, and I think that's exactly right. And I said that in my weekly plan this week. It's just like, look, when I have conviction, I'll have conviction, but here, like, it's not the time. Like, this is, I don't like this from like a weekly basis. The day trades, the intraday trades have been fantastic. There's still been very, very good trades here and there, but this picture is kind of gross. And if you missed it again, I said like the structure within this balance displeases me greatly. It's just not a big, beautiful, nice, clean, D-shaped composite profile or something that you could just trade across back and forth. Yep. It's just not that. Just a lot of janky, Dollar General LVNs sitting all over the place, messing with you. You're not sure if you're supposed to bid it or just let it pass right through. It's very, very ugly. And so to me, I think one day at a time, but I also hope and think we should find out relatively soon this week because, again, you got that human response on Friday. They came in, they had to sell a few, but they still didn't really break it down that badly, did they? I mean, NQ didn't even make Thursday's low. ES like traded a couple of ticks below, and then sellers raised the, mission accomplished, banner on the deck of, whatever ship that was that President Bush did. And then it was just like, okay, we're good, we're done.
What's funny is like all sellers really did was get us back to this giant node on ES that basically has been the 6460s that I think you've been talking about that in the pre-market, that area down there towards like 58s as well. Like they really didn't push us very far. That seems to be the low, not necessarily the lows of this balance, but an area that is sellers just seem to have a lot of trouble initiating below. And buyers are happy to take whatever they can at that price to long this for the all-time high. So I think we talked about it last Sunday, even a few weeks ago, when I was saying like the market has given gifts, I guess, of longs at 64.60s several times over the last month, where if you caught an intraday long there, you probably had a good day if you were able to actually hold it for 10, 15 an hour. It just seems to continue to work out. So we'll see how long it holds if we continue to knock on it. But I still do like, if you mean just playing this on the overall structure, like all of this volume that has transpired in that low acting as support in that kind of 55s to 60 area. So we'll see.
It's so disgusting. I just like, I'm getting sick and tired of it. But I'll say two things. The first thing, in the bulls corner is, I mean, where have we closed every week though? We've closed in that range, right? Yep. So we've had excursions lower, but I mean, it's always has snapped back. So what does that tell me? That's kind of a rejection, at least as of now, of lower prices. Now we just got some massive market generated information, right? Like maybe that has changed, I suppose. And then on the flip side of that, because that was kind of bullish, I guess in the bears column is like, how many times are buyers gonna buy the 64.60s and just not get a whole lot of satisfaction? How many times are they gonna buy 64.08? How many times are they gonna buy 63.80s and then just make these marginal higher highs? You're just not getting a whole lot of push through there. So is it worth buying it anymore? And I thought maybe they were done last week, and that sure as hell was wrong. They still did buy them and lifted it up here and then just took a hike. Right. So, we'll see if they're ready to just lift this off Friday. And so to me, I think, a weak market coming in, and I feel like we should know relatively early in the week, forget about what's happening now, because if you remember Sunday night last week, we basically had a B-shaped profile on Friday. And then we retraced a good amount of that B on Sunday night. And it was all rocking emojis everywhere on social media. And then by the time we came in for the cash open, it was a very, very different picture. But, to me, after Friday, a weak market holds below, let's say 6,500, and then liquidates through 6,450s, no problem. A strong market refuses to trade below Friday's low and is willing to initiate above, 6,502. So, let's see what these moves here overnight do, but ultimately where we wake up in the morning and hopefully we see some conviction, because I have not seen conviction in the tape. I use air quotes when I say tape because otherwise I'll get yelled at, but I have not seen conviction. And so I can't have conviction if I have not seen conviction from other players.
Yeah, 100%. This is a good overnight. It was a quiet weekend. Like, unless you're just somebody that has to trade, like I have no interest in really sitting here trying to execute in Globex. Like, do you trade Globex at all, Pharm?
I usually not, because I'm usually doing stuff with family and the kids and bedtime routines and all that. But if a perfect setup, is presenting, then I will. But a lot of times, especially Asia, and I'm on Pacific Coast time. I'm in Arizona, so I'm EST -3 right now. So I'm awake during Asia, and it's usually just slop, kind of nonsense, algorithmic trading, fully electronic, not a whole lot going on. But occasionally there's a fantastic trade that sets up. Then obviously I'm awake early to do the show. I will say the European session is much better. So sometimes I will catch something early morning, wake up, slap a trade on, hit the use the bathroom, and then open my eyes and, see what happens afterwards. So sometimes I'll do that, but not usually.
Now, I guess the real question in the room, do you ever get out of your comfort zone, that is trading ES, NQ, and actually dabble in the crude oil world?
Yeah, I actually like trading crude. She's a little bit wild. I haven't charted it a whole lot lately, so I'm glad you've got your chart up. But I actually am going to start looking at it, since it's very clearly going to negatives again, right? It's probably -69. I feel like it fell short a couple of years back, hitting negative 31, something like that. It's clearly needs to finish that move. Unfinished auction at -31 on crude, Nick. So let's go see what that does. But I do enjoy trading that. I've traded gold a few times. I've traded the bonds a few times. So I'll trade whatever, but definitely core service, more focused on ES and NQ. So that's, the big picture for me. And then, if time allows, with, however many kids I have. 4 that I know of, am I right? They keep you pretty busy. So if time allows, then we'll slap on a few extra charts. We traded YM a few times, actually, as boomer as that shit is, but it was a clean trade, and it's in price discovery right now. So it's not terrible to look at. Well,
the reason I was asking about you dabbling in the old CL, the old liquid gold here, is because a couple weeks ago I had talked about a perfectly good looking bottom for a potential swing long up towards like 70s that may have been forming in crude. And of course, this was the Sunday show, like right here a couple weeks ago in August. I was talking a big game, like I may get out of the NQES world and actually, build into this swing long somewhere between kind of the 62s. I think I was kind of looking to add somewhere above this little node from the previous week in like 62.30s, building a position with micros, like actually like practicing what I preach as far as like how you can do these things. And of course I didn't do that. And then it gave me not once, not twice, but like 3 attempts that I could have actually built into one and, started covering. Like, you would have gotten a decent move out of this, but then whoever this horrible person is up here around 65, 66, that wants crude to apparently go back to 0 and go negative for some odd reason, as Pharm was just saying, I hate that person, because now we're right back where my initial entry would have been. If I was sitting in runners, I would probably be out at this point. But is this still a bottom, or would you just continue to let this roll into like the 57s, 55, some of those, old contract prices that I don't know how safe it actually would be to to long at this point on the longer, more historical time frame, because that happy place of crude has always kind of been that, 64s to 72s, like forever priced around there. We get the violent moves out of it. You get, breakouts higher, but that's where it likes to sit. So as we drift further and further below that, I get a little less comfortable looking for longs and just stay away, I guess. What are your thoughts, Pharm?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is, look, like if you haven't planned out an absolute banger of a trade and then forgotten to trade it, I mean, are you even really a trader, right? I mean, those are the best trades, right? Where you get to look back and say, well, yeah, I really nailed that one and it made $0. So that's, yeah, that's my expertise.
I put myself in like the best of YouTubers right there, with my ability apparently to call out that trade, but put no money at risk and then act like I'm a genius going forward because I called it out, but put nothing at risk.
Yes. I mean, I'll be laying at bed at like, 11 o'clock at night or something like that, working on a chart. I'll post something by the morning, completely forgotten. I mean, I'm so old, I don't remember what I ate for breakfast. So, it happens to me a lot with crude. I mean, I'm a little bit annoyed, right? Where did that thing bottom? I mean, it was like 55s, I guess. I had a spot like 51.50 to 53.86 that I was sitting there waiting for when it made that low in the 55s, and I was so pissed off that it didn't get down there. But I really would have liked to take a shot there. I think high 58s though are probably going to bid if it comes down there. But I'm definitely interested, because here's my thought, right? I mean, we got this cold print, and I think, like, I mean, even if we are getting a slowdown in growth, I mean, it's been made very, very clear that no administration in this country, anytime in the near future, is going to tolerate any kind of a slowdown. I mean, they're just gonna slosh so much money at any kind of a slowdown that I can't imagine energy staying down too long. I was long energy out of the last growth scare, and it closed that a few weeks back. I left a little bit on the table on some energy names, but obviously feel pretty good about it right now. So I feel like, for the most part, any kind of instance where sellers get out of line to the downside on crude, I'm going to be looking to get long. Bigger picture, longer term, I don't know how long that's going to be. We have to sort of see how the market reacts to data. But I would love to see one more growth scare where the odds of a 2026 recession hit like 70% or something like that, up from 69. Then I will be looking to get involved there, probably on energy in a big way, because I feel like inflation 2.0 is a little bit more likely than some kind of giant doom or recession.
Right. I think that's very, very possible. We'll see how everything kind of continues to shake out. But I am seeing the area, and I know continuous contracts, how you back adjust is all that matters, but you can kind of find, I mean, who knows what the exact price technically is, but somewhere in that like 57s, let's call it, to down towards the 55s is where there was a decent amount of structure back in April and I guess end of May into June. So that's kind of that next area down there. I don't know. I know we're going into rollover next week in equity, so we get to have this lovely debate between traders once again of like how you back adjust, how you look at things, and we're trading at the all-time highs. So, when we roll to December, these prices much higher, we never actually, we're even close to trading at. So we get to have this discussion once again. So I always take some of the continuous contract areas with a slightly more grain of salt and kind of look for larger volume builds in them versus like highs and lows. I think it's very hard to pinpoint highs and lows with rollover and things. So I guess we'll see. This is a low in CL, at least in the early parts of this week. I'd be cautiously looking for, do we get a decent volume build kind of back inside of the 62s? You could take that stab long there, but as we drift, let's call it anywhere below the 6160s, I mean, I'm completely hands off. I'm going to let this go make a new low. I have no interest. But in the event that we potentially kind of get over 62s, then yeah, maybe we go gap fill and make the rotation back up towards, the value area lows of last week up towards 63s. But for the most part, I'm not as confident as I was 3 weeks ago about looking for a swing long in crude just yet. Yeah, was that 3 weeks ago? Yes, it was.
Yeah, it's got some work to do, doesn't it?
Yeah. You really want to see this, well back inside. And a day like Friday, post NFP, and you just get that violent move down, it just doesn't instill a ton of confidence in your swing longs, especially after we rejected all the way up here again. So, yeah, that's how I'd be looking at it. But I also would not want to short short crude in the hole here at 62s. And everyone, this is my golden retriever whiskey who decided to try to join me on stream here for a hot second. We locked him in my office this evening just because he was being a butt. So we're just gonna push him back down and continue on with our show. Pharm, I know you've got some new dogs, right? Were you just saying that?
Yeah. We kind of came home from up north with a couple of pups that were at a rescue organization. Mom had been killed or something up in the middle of nowhere on a reservation, and there was like a litter of like 10. So we weren't going to get dogs again, but this dog came up, started licking my calves, and I mean, it was pretty much over at that point. Wife got all kinds of jealous, but that was okay. And we brought them home. They look completely differently. One looks like a kind of a part, white husky mixed with a shepherd or something. The other one looks like a terrier shepherd, but I mean, they're the same litter for sure. So they're sitting right next to me. So if you hear any crying or whining, it's either them or the kids.
I'm curious how your experience with litter mates goes, if it's any better or worse than my two red golden retrievers that are brothers from the same litter. So they are.
Yeah. It really depends. We had a couple of litter mates a while back, and they just constantly fought. But these two seem okay. They're also girls, so maybe they won't go crazy like the boys used to do a long time ago. But we've had a lot of dogs. It's been a while though, so we'll see. They're sleepy though right now, so they're nice and quiet.
Well, I think a lot of us in the chat as well as on the NinjaTrader team are big dog people. So I think everyone wants to see them eventually. So it'll be fun whenever you get the opportunity to post a photo.
Yeah, let's get him potty trained first, and then I'll just have one of them sit here on my lap for a little bit. That'll be a good opportunity to cover my belly with something cute. So
there you go. But yes, Cooper knows the golden retriever is the superior supremacy breed. Big fan of them. Although I've had huskies. I mean, we've had everything as a longer family, but I'm a golden retriever guy now. All right. Speaking of golden, let's talk about Gold, who finally, I mean, I wish I had sound effects. I wish the team behind the scenes could give me something like a free bird for Gold finally leaving like the 80 to 100 point range it was in for. I mean, I don't even have candles and volume loaded for how long we were in this consolidation and range and in Gold. So celebration, everybody. Gold has finally left the building and it is making new highs. And how high will it go? Will it go to 4,000? I have absolutely no idea, but if the weakness potentially in equities continues, then why not higher and higher? It seems like China and everywhere else is just continuing to, bid us up and is buying more. So I have a hard time not continuing to see a rally in metals. In fact, I was actually looking at silver and some of the others to potentially play a little catch up with things like this in a move. So it's hard for me to want to fade this. I would much rather be looking for a way to get long down here towards kind of the old all-time highs above 3,500, 3,520s. I don't think I want to fade this just yet until we potentially lost this area. I would rather be a part of this potential breakout. And we've talked about this many times on the show, and I'm sure, Pharm talks about this when we talk about balance areas too. Is just when you do finally leave, as long as it is, even if it's something like this, that it's months and months long, you don't necessarily want to be the first idiot to try to fade that move once it does finally break said balance or consolidation that it's sitting in. So I have no interest in trying to fade this. In fact, I want to join along with it just like I tried to do back at 2550s in November during the birth of my child Pharm, when I was apparently longing gold in the delivery room while everybody was asleep. And that's not something you should be doing. So I quickly flattened the trade, which basically was the generational low in gold. So
excellent.
I get to live with that too.
That sounds about right. But yeah, I mean, when you have to count on, more than one hand, how many months of balance were just broken, you probably don't want to fade that. So, we'll see what happens. Let's see what this little pop here on ES does into 6502. Let's see if they'll get this through some decent volume.
There was a large guy sitting at 745 on NQ, just got filled with 251 lots with still 160 sitting there.
Somebody's hungry.
Yes, they are. Was there a similar order on ES? Not that I can see on my leg to leg here. About 200, but I don't know how this, no, not something like NQ just had.
Let's see. I always like to see these volume pushes, and if it's sustained through this range, was that an exact tap of 2.5? That's kind of lame. Run it. I say sweep it, at least. Even if it's going to fail, just sweep it real quick.
Yeah, did anyone
trade
see
any?
I
wasn't looking.
I was not paying attention because we were talking about gold, which I think everyone gets the message on gold. Mm-hmm. You should probably be looking for ways to get long and not try to fade that just yet. So other than that, I don't have a great read on this, but this is a pretty, wild move that we've seen so far. Basically pushing us back above this spot that Pharm and I are going to continue to watch, which is that kind of 65, even 6502s to 6510s, which would be telling. But I would like to see this during RTH more than anything else. But
yeah, this so far feels eerily similar to last Sunday night. Like I mentioned, they did a little bit of retrace, clean up a little bit but not all of that thin structure. I'm not saying it's going to turn over. I'm just saying, like, you can't watch the first, we're not even an hour in, and start posting your rocket emojis, like you definitely see on social media happen quite a bit. Usually mark a top, and you're like, come on, man, I was long for that. Why did you have to bull sperm into that, volume spike into a key spot? So, we'll see if this sustains. It's going to be an interesting what we wake up to. But I mean, you're right. I think you mentioned this, like Asia's just been bidding. Oh, you were talking about gold actually. But I mean, like the Nikkei has been on like absolute fire. And so it just seems like every Asia session, our equities are bid. And then, the Europors come in and sometimes they bid them along with, sometimes they sell them. But yeah, Asia session's been broadly pretty strong, I would say. So I think that's something to watch for. If that flips, if the Nikkei gets weak, I think that's definitely going to be potential signal that equities may be ready to take a little bit of a breather. I haven't even looked at the Nikkei yet tonight, but there's no reason to. It's too early. But that's something I've definitely noticed. The Nikkei's been very, very strong. So as long as that continues, we'll probably continue to bid here.
Yeah. So we'll watch. We'll see if this our lovely friend on NQ at 745 still has more to offer. But for the time being, we kind of backed off, I think, from whoever that gentleman or lady was that was sitting on the ask, happy to take all of that in and initiate but not necessarily initiate, but take a position up there. So we'll keep going. We got about 15 minutes plus. We'll see how long we want to go tonight. But the main event of this week, I'm sure Pharm is loaded up on his short dated options in GME for the earnings after the bell on Tuesday. It is the main event from 2021 that everyone, I guess, never forgets. But yeah, GME reporting. No, the biggest events this week, guys, is really going to be coming down to, outside of the meme that is, GME still being a thing, I guess. I did see, I don't know if you saw this or if this is actually true. Someone created like a short GME ETF options thing. Something I think they just sell like call premium. And like have molded it into an ETF. It was something just ridiculous. And I was like, yeah, that's not a top signal at all for a lot of things. But I saw something like that on X. I didn't know how true it was, but apparently someone has made aspects of ETFs around just GME itself. So
I believe it.
But yeah, the big events, guys, are going to be Oracle's earnings as well as Adobe's on Thursday. Outside of that, apparently it's the Ryan Cohen show between GME and Chewy pre-market on Wednesday. So not a whole lot to look forward to. We are past the plethora of Mag 7 and big tech earnings that can really move us, but it's still worth paying attention to the vampire of Silicon Valley himself, Larry Ellison, after the bell on Tuesday, and what Adobe is saying in their latest AI narrative as well. So those are two of the larger bellwethers in the non-Mag 7 big tech. So curious to hear how they report. So super light this week, but those are the ones to be paying attention to, unless I'm crazy. Was there any others I missed?
Lovesac. How are you not looking forward to Lovesac?
I mean, I just got a new sofa. It was not from Lovesac, but it was
What a name. What a name of a company. That's great.
They have a showroom like down the street from my house, but it never really appealed to me. I mean, maybe in the right room, but there's a lot of good players. My wife was in high-end furniture before. She's now a stay-at-home mom, so she's bougie in what she wants and the way the cushions need to be made and wrapped and everything. So I don't get much say these days.
Excellent. Yeah, it is a pretty light week. So, I mean, that bodes well. What kind of data we have? I suspect that's where you're going next.
Yes, sir. So, Monday, heading into the, nothing in the pre-market, and Mondays have been a little lighter as far as, news and data and things. So we'll see if anything hits the, from our fearless leaders' fingers, if anything kind of comes out of the White House that can move the markets. But for the most part, Monday is going to be super light. We just have consumer inflation expectations at 10 a.m. after the bell, followed by a 3 and 6 month bill auction. Another interesting one that randomly comes in a little hot, little cold, are going to be the consumer credit change. Not something that typically will move the market unless it's just something completely outlandish. So just something to keep in the back of your mind if you're going to be trading right around power hour tomorrow. In fact, I will be trading the close with Big Cat Leo the Tiger himself tomorrow on NT Live. So I will have to deal with potentially that release myself if I'm in a trade. Just a quick little gotcha that might give you just that spasm to just stop you out on NQ if you're not paying attention. The big event probably is going to be 30 minutes after the bell on Tuesday morning when we have the non-farm payrolls annual revision. So place your bets in the chat, folks. How big of a revision is this one going to be? In fact, I think I said 900K. The previous revision for this release was 820,000. It was revised.
No big deal.
Yeah, that's a very small number, just roughly a million non-farm jobs being revised that actually didn't actually go to people or weren't actually real. However you want to look at this data, I don't trust any of it. In fact, we're getting new, I think Bureau of Labor and Statistics data. I think the White House said in about a year from now they'll have more accurate data or something.
Probably after the midterms. I mean, just
probably
around there.
So we'll see. Place your bets. We'll probably start a poll on X on the over under on what that number is going to be if you want to have some fun with it. But we'll see. Maybe we'll start doing that tomorrow night. Get the over unders in. But I actually had no idea until I was kind of getting prepped for tonight's show that it's a PPI and CPI week once again, and they kind of reversed it where we have PPI actually coming in on Wednesday, and then we have CPI on Thursday. I feel like sometimes it's like CPI is Wednesday and PPI is Thursday or Tuesday. So this is a little weird, but PPI at 7:30 Central Time on Wednesday. And then another one, I always like to call these out when the 10, 20, 30-year, 2-year, are on the docket. But we do have a 10-year note auction as well at lunchtime Wednesday. So just plenty of things to keep us on our toes this week. But then the big one obviously is the Fed's never-ending assault on inflation still, you know, mission accomplished, defeated as it was in November of 2023? We'll see. It still feels like we get snippets where how many months, month over month gauges of this? Can it just be like right in line and not be continuing to look like it's going to be well anchored under the what is now, I guess, the new measure, which is as long as it's under 3%, it seems like we're okay. That 2% is pretty far off, it seems, as we still seem to be holding very well in kind of the mid to high twos for the time being. So we'll see how that shakes out. I'm not a big macro guy. I just see the numbers and kind of laugh when they violently miss projections. At noon, or sorry, even with, coupled with the CPI print is going to be initial jobless claims, continuing jobless claims. And then at lunchtime on Thursday, we will have a long bond auction to keep us on our toes. Followed by Friday, being Nick's favorite market data seizure of all of them is still going to be the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment print. This is the preliminary, not the final, so probably not a big of a mover as sometimes it can be, but I always like to call this one out because it's just so ridiculous when it is a miss that, you know, you have things like velocity logic go into effect for a print that, or sorry, for a release that probably nobody is really thinking about as potentially a gotcha, that is the Michigan Consumer Sentiment. So love that one. What's your favorite data release, Pharm? I'm actually curious because that is mine.
I think I heard the story, your story about consumer sentiment, actually. So that's pretty funny. Because I mean, I agree. Like, you don't expect, you're like, okay, well, like CPI, NFP, like, yeah, I better be a little careful and make sure I have a lot of cushion if I'm carrying a position into this. But you're like, oh, you know, consumer sentiment, the sentiment, this will work out okay. And then, yeah, we've had some wild moves on it. But I tend to think NFP. I mean, NFP historically, I mean, over long periods of time, has been the most important to me. And obviously, we took a foray into appreciating CPI and PPI more because of this recent inflationary cycle. But I mean, look, the thing is that the Fed's not hiking. They've made that very, very clear. We're nowhere near a hike. So like hot prints, I mean, we had what, 0.9% month over month and PPI, something like that last month. It was insane. Yeah. But they're not going to hike. So like whatever, right? I mean, the market has shrugged that off. And so far, bad news in terms of labor has been good news because yay, more cuts. And so the question now is that if that flips, where it's like, okay, well, labor maybe is cooling off, is it too cold? And then I feel like the problem comes in is, you know, if the CPI now or PPI is too hot, does it become one of those oh shit situations where it's like, okay, well, the Fed kind of needs to cut because, you know, labor is softening, but, you know, inflation is kind of curling back up now too. Like, what do we do? Like, and there's no answer to that. There's not a good answer. So that's where the problem could potentially be. But like CPI, PPI on its own, I don't feel like matters a huge ton, or it hasn't recently outside of that, because they're not going to hike. So, you know, we'll see if it matters for that secondary reason now, because maybe they cut less because, you know, it's still a little bit elevated. So we'll see. But I like NFP personally. It just gives you a better picture over the long term. It's always been the most important to me, of like jobs. Like, that's what matters. Like, what matters is like people have jobs. They continue to invest in the market. Companies earn money. You know, inflation's great for stocks as long as the Fed's not hiking. So that's why, like, it really was a short-term thing. Which I know if you started trading in the last 5 years, you're like, what do you mean short-term thing? That's a short-term thing. 5 years, you know, 4 years, 3 years of CPI mattering a whole bunch. Matters a lot more what labor is doing in this market to me.
It's about when I got, you know, cut into the first round of non-farm payroll layoffs. And I'm still unemployed, Pharm. I'm still doing this.
Yeah.
You have to create your own story, I guess, these days. But yeah, that's funny, because it's really when this cycle kind of started, was right when I got the old axe and had to press buttons on a screen somewhat successfully to survive.
Started buying GME, right?
Yeah, I went
About the time.
super long GME. Actually, no, I was too afraid to do that. So clearly I got late, like a couple days late, and went the AMC train and made all my money with calls. No, none of that is true. In fact, I'm the worst like euphoria type like trader ever. I just stay away and it could still rally another 15, 20, 30%. And I'm, saw it, thought it was okay. Yeah, I could go a little more, but I'm not going to touch it now. Like that's my mindset all the time. So here's what we're going to do. We're right at time. So we're going to do a quick recap of ES and kind of the plan, which is pretty simple. I have no idea where we're going to go. We are sitting right around this kind of, if you want to really say where all the volume was traded the last couple of weeks, it's basically, this is that tippy top of that value area sitting right here, kind of below 6,500. So you really want to see us start to show some buyers initiating above here. Otherwise, it's very possible we just rotate right back to 64.60, where once again, we got to see, are sellers serious? Are they going to initiate below 64.60s and actually show us, yes, we are in fact going to go test some lower prices? Or are buyers just once again ready to scoop up there and we continue to consolidate? And the longer we continue this low at 64.60s holds, the more I think, yeah, let's continue to make a new all-time high. If sellers don't want to initiate below that, it's hard for me to be too bearish, just being honest. So that's how I'm kind of looking at this week. Pharm, final thoughts for our lovely friends in the chat.
Yeah, no, I'm right with you.
Probably a good idea.
I'm right with you. A weak market's going to offer Friday's low, no problem. Liquidate those longs and come back to 64.08 and likely 63.80s. And it's going to, outside of this overnight session, it's going to have a lot of trouble sustaining above 65.02. That's if the market is weak. If you come in and we're finding bids and higher highs and higher lows above 65.02, then to me, we're at least on a structure repair mission. This is for tomorrow. And then we see if that sustains. But a strong market would have no problem sustaining above this 65.02. They clear up this structure on Friday up here into the 65.20s and have no problem trading higher. I still believe it's when you find a firm bid from above at 65.02. See, they tried it Friday pre-market. It came exactly down there and it made just a slight higher high and then went to hell. But this type of thing is what you want to see. The fact that it was negated to me is pretty bearish. But we have had just numerous bearish setups, not produce bearish results. But to me, bulls, you have to find bids above this 65.02 into a higher high. It has to be firm. You've got to make it clear. There's got to be conviction. Every single other time there has not been conviction. If that lacks, then I think it's time to press the sell button and liquidate any and all of the buyers that made an attempt that failed through here. So, for me, for my plan in tomorrow is if we get these failed pushes here through 96 to 65.03, once we're offering about 91, 92, 93 or so, I think we get liquidations down to 60, maybe 51 to 54. So we just got to see which side is willing to press and sustain a break of, this kind of big range. If you want to call it 6,500 to 64.60, that's fine. I just gave buyers a little bit extra room, certainly down to Friday's low, and I think that makes sense.
Awesome stuff. Well, folks, I know everyone has much better things to do with the rest of their weekend and on their Sunday night. There's NFL football on. In fact, you guys should not be watching this tape, hanging out with us. You should be enjoying time with friends and family, drinking some cold ones, enjoying some lovely grilled pieces of meat, some smoked pieces of meat, and getting ready for the never-ending march that is back to the that summer is now over. Pharm, is summer over? Can we say summer's over? We're past Labor Day. Kids are, I think, nationwide are probably back in school at this point. I'm assuming your kids are back.
My kids are back. Summer isn't over until like October 31st in Arizona, though. It'll be 100 degrees until then. It's like, yeah. So, but yes, summer is over. Let's see some volume come in. And look, if I had my way, I would see us find the sell button this week. I would like to liquidate all of these pansy ass longs that refuse to lift these highs more than a few nominal handles, rinse them, separate them from their contracts, and find some strong buyers lower. That's what I would like. I don't know if I'm going to get it because sellers have been just completely and utterly absent. But when longs decide it's time to sell, that's when price tends to move. Shorts are not going to break down this market. This market will move lower if longs decide they feel they need to exit. We saw some of that Friday. We don't know if that carries forward into this week. That's what I would like. I'm not calling for it. I would just like some volatility, and I would like some strength to return to this market. And we have had none.
Yep. Let's hope that volume returns, bring some volatility with it, and we can find ourselves in a seasonal traders type of market that we've become a little more accustomed to between the hours of September and October as traders. So I'm optimistic for that too, Pharm. I hope that is what we start to see in this upcoming week and for the rest of this month and into October. That's when I think some good months and some good weeks, some good years can be made if volume does return in that way. So I'm optimistic. Let's see what happens. But I think that's going to wrap us up for here. We're probably going to end it on that note. Thank everybody for hanging out. Pharm, you're back tomorrow morning, aren't you?
I think I'm off tomorrow morning. I think they're doing something a little different tomorrow morning, but I will definitely be there on Tuesday and Thursday morning, but better double check my schedule to be sure. But yeah, I think they might have something else cool going on tomorrow morning.
I didn't know if you were still doing I guess your pre-market on Mondays, but yeah. So Pharm will be back later this week as well. But if you've missed her, I believe Tanya Trades is going to be back. She's going to be trading the open with us last time I checked. So that'll be really fun. Be awesome to see her back on the NT live screen and giving us some trades in the morning. And then you will have my trading buddy, Stowe, in the mid-morning, kind of giving us that post-Euro close hour of trade. And then, like I said earlier, Mr. Big Cat himself and me will be trading the close tomorrow for Power Hour to round out your Monday. But everybody outside of Jim is still living the dream, hanging out in Italy. So you'll be left with the rest of us crew. I guess the scrubs kind of managing the day-to-day. So that'll be a lot of fun. I look forward to everybody hanging out and spending some time with us this week. Everybody have a great rest of your Sunday. I really appreciate y'all being here. Be safe out there. If you're trading, don't do anything I wouldn't do. And we will see you bright and early tomorrow morning to trade the open. Cheers, guys. Have a good night.